Hello and welcome back to World 360. Who are the major stakeholders in Pakistan's upcoming elections? What is on the US Secretary of State's agenda on his fifth visit to the Middle East? And finally, is Tunisia's president about to take a drastic step to stem economic turmoil in the country? We answer these and more in today's episode. First up, Pakistan. A serious economic crisis, a jailed Imran Khan, and yet another party propped up by the security establishment. These are some of the factors characterizing Pakistan's upcoming elections, which will take place on 8th February. Now, the polls are also happening at a time when the country has faced attacks from armed factions, whether it be Baloch groups or the Tehreek-e-Taliban, and this has only added to the instability of the nation. If you recall, Pakistan has also had issues recently with neighboring Iran after the two countries conducted attacks on terror hideouts in each other's territories. On Thursday, 250 million people in Pakistan will head to polls, so let's look at who the major stakeholders are. The Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, or the PMLN, run by the Sharifs, and the Pakistan People's Party, the PPP, led by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, are the major parties. The PTI, led by former Prime Minister Imran Khan, is no longer really in the fray after Khan and his Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi were sentenced to 10 years in jail. Shehbaz Sharif, the younger brother of Nawaz Sharif, took office as Prime Minister in 2022 after he led an alliance that toppled Imran Khan's government. And parallel to Shehbaz's return and Imran Khan's departure, Nawaz Sharif has returned to Pakistan after 4 years of self-imposed exile in the UK. The PMLN won 64 seats in 2018, so let's see if they can top that. And more so, what will this mean for Nawaz Sharif going forward? Now, the PTI has faced many restrictions from the Election Commission ahead of these polls, and many of the PTI's candidates are now running as independents. In fact, this election will see the highest number of contesting independents in years. Over 60% of candidates vying for seats in the lower house are independents. Also, despite being jailed, popularity for Imran Khan is still strong in Pakistan, and therefore it will be interesting to see how candidates that were once associated with his party will fare. Now, for the PPP, it's also a question of whether they will return to the political fray in significant numbers. The last time the party was in power was in 2008, and they're still well aligned with the PLMN. If you recall, Bilawal was foreign minister under Shehbaz Sharif's government. Now, the Jamaat-e-Islami is a right-wing party to keep your eye on. It last served in 2002 under the rule of President Pervez Musharraf, who took power in a coup. Last time, it secured 12 seats as part of an alliance of religious parties. Now, by this list, we can clearly see that a lot of the usual suspects have come back into the political fray. As former Pakistan ambassador Maliha Lodhi writes in a piece for Dawn, the same parties are contesting, some reincarnations of older ones, while others cobbled together by defectors from another party. She also predicts that no party is expected to win an overall majority and will definitely need allies for a coalition government. How independent candidates figure in potential coalitions will also be interesting to see. For our second topic, we're looking at US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's fifth visit to the Middle East since the Israel-Hamas war broke out. A lot has happened since his last visit, along with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, to the region. South Africa took Israel to the International Court of Justice. A UN body has been accused of having members working for Hamas. The situation in the Red Sea has only become more treacherous. So, what exactly is on Blinken's agenda? Well, this week he will travel to Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Israel, and the West Bank. Working to secure the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas and a humanitarian pause to allow more flow of aid into Gaza will likely be his priorities. Currently, the Egyptians and Qataris are mediating conversations with Palestinian Hamas militants on a deal to free the hostages in exchange for a truce. The ongoing Houthi attacks on ships in the Red Sea were likely a hot topic of discussion when Blinken met the Saudi Crown Prince on Monday. Reports say his meeting with the Saudi leader lasted about 2 hours. A senior US official reportedly told journalists that Blinken intends to deliver a message directly to countries in the region that the United States does not want to see the conflict escalated and will not escalate the conflict. Now, this comes despite calls by some US Republican lawmakers for the US to start launching attacks inside Iran, and Iran is who is believed to be backing both Hamas and the Houthis. Now, on Tuesday, Blinken visited Egypt for a meeting with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the hopes to shore up support for the truce and hostage deal mediated by the Egyptians and the Qataris. He is expected to go to Qatar next. For our last topic, we're looking at an intriguing development in a North African country, Tunisia. If you remember, Tunisia is where the Arab Spring first began, after which these pro-democracy protests spread to Libya, Egypt, Yemen, Syria, and Bahrain. Now, Tunisia, with a population of just 1.2 crore people, is facing major economic challenges, including urgent foreign debts. It's been one hurdle after another for this African country. First, the 2008 financial crisis, then the Arab Spring, COVID-19, and the Russia-Ukraine war, which ended up widening the country's fiscal deficit from 0.6% of GDP in 2010 to 6% of GDP in 2017. Now, this has made it hard for the African country to repay its debts. We've seen how Pakistan and Sri Lanka and various other countries have turned to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, when in trouble. But interestingly, Tunisia rejected an IMF deal just last year. It was in talks with the IMF for a $1.9 billion bailout loan, but Tunisian President Kais Saied turned it down. A report by Africa Business points out, however, that IMF's past loans to Tunisia haven't really helped reduce its debt to GDP ratio. The report indicates that over the past 20 years, the IMF issued loans worth $1.7 billion in 2013 and then $2.9 billion in 2016 to Tunisia, but it had limited impact. Economic growth remains stagnant in Tunisia while debt servicing to the IMF and the World Bank increased. And now the country's president is thinking of an even more drastic move, which is to borrow billions from its central bank to reduce the country's fiscal deficit. Many have seen this as President Said's attempts to erode the autonomy of the central bank. Buying securities such as bonds can sometimes serve monetary policy, but central banks ideally should not finance government spending. To give you some numbers, President Said wants the central bank to buy up to $2.25 billion of interest-free bonds to help close a budget deficit of $3.2 billion. Experts have also warned that this could have major consequences for inflation in a country where consumer price inflation is already above the Middle East and North Africa regional average. Let's also not forget that this comes ahead of Tunisia's presidential election later this year. Thank you so much for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.